Well, let's get this show started. As you can see on my screen, Christina Springstead is here to talk about her love of technology, her love of software, and really how Christina used Keeper to close the books 10 days faster. We got a jam-packed day. It'll be very interactive. It'll be fun. We're going to be inside of Keeper. But how the flow is going to go is we'll start with just an introduction from all of our panelists that you see on your screen. We'll then go into learning more about how Christina decided to select the right software to run her firm. And we'll get into some details about automating your processes, workflows within Keeper, custom views, creating templates. We'll really get into the weeds here. And then we'll talk about Profit First Methodology, which has really been influential for Christina in helping her run her firm. She showed me all the books in her bookshelf that were like Profit First. It was awesome to see. And we'll end with, I always think it's great to learn what's on the roadmap for different firms, what people are planning for to end the year, and in a Q&A. So that's what we have in store. I'm going to turn it over to our panelists and hand it off to Sean.
Hi. Yeah, so I'm sure a handful of you have seen me before, so good to kind of remotely high-five you through the screen. And for any of the new folks who haven't seen me before, I'm a customer success manager at Keeper, kind of helping firms just like yours get the most out of it. Sage here, he's on my team as well, another customer success manager. If you want to say hi, Sage.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sage, also a customer success manager at Keeper. I see there are a couple of people that I recognize from calls in the chat as well. You also may recognize me from the YouTube channel. Ton of great videos there to help break down a lot of what we cover on Keeper. So make sure to check that out as well. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, so Sage and I, as customer success managers, have worked with like dozens, hundreds of firms using Keeper. And I can confidently say throughout that, it's not like a one-size-fits-all software. That doesn't mean a lot of firms can't use it. It's just going to use it for different things, and practices are going to look entirely different. I mean, each of your businesses is totally unique. I don't expect some cookie cutter shoe to fit all of you. With that in mind, Christina here, she got started with Keeper just on the kind of month-end review side instead of like a lot of the other features that Keeper has to offer. But she's sort of built this practice in Keeper that she can truly run. And this has been an ongoing process to build. And I think the results of it are just so cool and successful that it's worth sharing, kind of seeing tools that she's used to find success and how that's all streamlined her business. So enough about me. I'd like to hand this over to Christina. Christina, do you mind introducing yourself and a little background on your firm?
Yeah, I'd love to. Hi, everyone. Christina Springstead. The down and dirty background is out of high school. I went into school for accounting, and about a year in thought, I don't want to sit behind a computer and crunch numbers all day. So I went out of accounting into sports management and have led lots of fun jobs throughout the times, but mostly running departments or companies on the back end. And so always was involved in the books or in the finances of some way. In 2010, I decided to side gig bookkeeping because I loved it so much. And there were small businesses who needed help. And after a decade of doing that, in January of 2020, decided to go full-time into my business. And so right before COVID, I left my full-time job, went straight into this business, and then COVID hit, which for our industry, thankfully, was a blessing for what I was going into, opposed to what other people experienced. So that's it. I have always had a love of numbers. My mom has made me focus on finances since I was young, and I decided to go back to the roots of the thing that I loved and apparently knew myself better than I thought I did when I was in high school. So I founded this firm by myself, was working a ridiculous amount of hours, not just 5 days a week, but 7 days a week, and realized I needed to scale, which is when I was really starting to look into workflows and softwares and automations. And ended up stumbling across Keeper in a Facebook group somewhere. And that's really kind of how my journey went. And I now have a team of 2. So there's myself and I have 2 team members, really well connected in the community. And so looking at how to share the things that I've experienced and to help other people avoid a lot of the pain points and wasted time that I went through.
Mm-hmm. And I guess on that note, biggest pain points, sort of, let's say, going back 2 years or sometime in this COVID period, what was sort of stopping you from taking your firm to the next level or really, feeling in control of it?
I'm a very process-driven, software technology organized individual, and there just wasn't really the best way to track everything that came with bookkeeping. So as we know, it'd be great if, like you said, Keeper is not cookie cutter, bookkeeping is not cookie cutter. So every customer is different. They need different things. They have different timelines on when they need their stuff. And so finding a way to track all of that and then successfully each day know what was going on, and certain deadlines would have to change or tasks would have to change based on a client came up with something and needed it, and that put your whole day behind, or God forbid you got sick and couldn't do something one day. So I was really having a hard time struggling with, how do I track everything that needs to be done within every file and every customer and all the customized tasks that they needed. A spreadsheet was great, but that still was clunky. Trying to use my Outlook tasks, and that just got messy, and notifications, I was just pausing because there was too many coming at me. So that was the biggest pain point, was literally, how the heck do I see what I need to do every day and really prioritize it? Because the amount of tasks on my list every day, honestly, it wasn't feasible to even get them all day done each day. So how did I know what it was? And then how did I prioritize it and then move things out and to make sure I communicated to my client if it was really important, that they knew I couldn't get to that, and when was I going to?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, if it's tough to stay on top of your own tasks as a firm owner, I can't really imagine managing a team or like putting some tasks on their plates as well.
Well, then alone, how do you have the time to even bring on a team to know to train them? Because you can barely get through your own. And that's just, you've got to slow down to train someone.
Yeah, for sure. So when you first started using Keeper, and when we first connected, you were really using it on like the month-end review side, handful of other tools in the tech stack, pretty built out bookmark sort of bar in your browser. So getting started with Keeper just on the month-end review side, what sort of drove you there?
So someone had let me know about Keeper, a good friend of mine and a peer that I had met through some other mastermind programs. And the way Keeper can help you double check your transactions and find errors so easily was what caused me to go into Keeper. So I really brought it into my workflow as the double check before I went to finalize a file. So I would do everything in QuickBooks and follow the QuickBooks review, the reviews that we can go through that they provide us to say, like, done with all these tasks. But when you're in the same software, it's kind of like when you try to proofread what you wrote, right? And then you're in the same software trying to proofread what you entered. Just there's something about how Keeper presents it, how they let you set up the filters of what you're looking for, and going through those, transaction and payee things was huge. And I was able to find things that needed to be adjusted, especially when I started bringing team members in, way faster than I could trying to comb through it in QuickBooks. So it provided a very easy, streamlined, faster way for me to double check the books before I was finalizing and sending them to my clients.
Mm-hmm. And for everyone who doesn't have the full background here, I've actually chatted with Christina for like a few months now, at least probably actually going into the tail end of last year when we first connected. So I do actually have some background on our firm. We've chatted plenty before. But what was really interesting is when we first connected, workflows just weren't in the same place. So workflows in another software, review side and Keeper, kind of marrying the two and juggling between them. So maybe to ask then, your workflows, what really drove you to keeping them outside of Keeper instead of merging all those together initially?
Sure. And I actually had to go document what they were, because it was so disjointed and I didn't realize it at the time. But what kept me from going into the full thing was not really understanding. So when Keeper came in, it's like the QC part was very easy to see immediately, which is why I brought it on board. But the training, templates are great. And I think I've told you, templates are only a small piece of a system, right? And the template is as good as really like the holistic view of using it. So I needed lists that would come up and have a task list for everybody that was assigned to the client. And I didn't really understand how that was working in Keeper. And so that's what kept me from it. It's just, I knew it was great for QC, being an entrepreneur and having tasks and volunteers. And I have kids and a husband who enjoys my time as well. I couldn't put my mind around how did I make this software work? So it just was, this is what I knew worked. And I just kept it there because it was this is what we've done and I know it works. And I don't have time to dive into it by myself from there.
Yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. I think one, change is just scary in general, but two, stick with tried and true. And also Keeper, there's a lot of functionality packed into it. And again, not all functionality is going to apply to everyone, right? But because of that, I feel like it kind of looks intimidating. There's just so many buttons to click through, and it's kind of hard to piece them all together, which is part of the reason why I really wanted to show off what you've been able to do here, like compiling all this, aggregating it into one nice consolidated place. It's just going to be so neat, I think, for a lot of folks to look at and learn from. So maybe on that note, I think it would make the most sense to kind of like pop into a view of what your practice now looks like and how you're managing the business now, bearing in mind all those difficulties sort of that existed before.
Absolutely.
So for everyone to catch you all up, this is not Christina's practice we're about to show you. I don't think, well, I certainly don't want to, and I don't think Christina wants to show any of her client information. So I've sort of just crudely copied some things over into a dummy practice. But it does resemble how she's managing the firm pretty well.
Yes, absolutely. And just before we even go in there, just to let everyone know is, we were talking about when I brought Keeper in. When I first started working with Sean, I decided to do a group with other Keeper users so we could have a mastermind to help share best practices. And so we set that up for 6 weeks. It actually ended up being 8 because there was so much. But I came into that saying, I will not leave my current workflow practice software. Like that, it's just not an option. So we're not even going there. 4 weeks later, and several months later, I'm on a webinar talking about how I completely did. So let me get my screen shared here.
Yeah, that was a very funny set of interactions. Like, remember hearing your workflow system's name every week in and out until suddenly we just didn't really hear its name anymore. And then there was that aha moment where just everything made it in. And the next week I saw you had this like gorgeous client list dashboard.
Yes, absolutely. So here is, like Sean said, this is a dummy account. I currently have 31 recurring clients. We just did 7 tests. But my day, really where I came into Keeper and I'm looking at is I'm using Keeper as a holistic firm practice management tool. So if I can share my tech stack before, what it used to look like is I was using ClickUp, which initially I had actually used for templates and automations for clients. Then once I moved that into a system called Pure Workflow, which is based on the Pixie platform, then I just use ClickUp or Outlook or my email box for firm tasks. So what did I have to get done for the company? And my staff was doing the same thing. So whatever task they had, it was in their ClickUp or in their email or in their Outlook calendar or tasks. So a lot of disjointed places where there was tasks that had to be done for the company, but they weren't factored into our client workflows. And then I had an Excel master sheet, which would have somewhat resembled this situation where we could track every client, the month of the close and the status, so that I could very quickly bring something up and see where were we at. If we have 31 clients, how many are closed and what was their due date? And then from there, we used Pure Bookkeeping, again, which was based on the Pixie platform, to do all of the tasks within the close for each client and assign them to a team member. And then we had Keeper for QCing the work before we actually went in. So we would be in Pure Workflow for the client, go out to Keeper. From Keeper, we would double check in the QuickBooks review, and then we would go back into Pure Workflow. And then also make sure that we're updating the Excel spreadsheet so that I could have a very quick oversight of what's going on. And then again, that QuickBooks review tab for the final closeout. So we were just all over the place because each system had something that I needed to track, but it was not all cohesive. So we went from there. And as we were working on this group, I realized, one, the way the templates worked in Keeper there was a way to update your template, but not have to lose the customization for each client. So that's one thing we had is in our old system, we would have a template. And if we made an update, once we wanted to, like the next time that template launched to the client, it would automatically launch the changes to the client. But if you had any customization whatsoever, you couldn't keep that in a template. So you would have to now create another template to be customized for that client, which then meant if you had to change to a template, you had to change all of these templates for all these clients, which was really clunky. So I love that in Keeper in the template, you can make a change. And then when you are ready, you can launch it to that specific client. And by just tweaking the name of it, you can then not lose your old customization, copy it back over and make those changes. So that was a huge improvement for me. But what I love in here, and then Sean, stop me if you want to ask me another question because I'm just kind of rolling through. But what I loved is once I was working with Sean through the 6 and 8 week program that we went through, I had an aha moment was not only were the templates amazing, which meant I could leave pure workflow. So once I saw that what I could do in the templates, I was like, this is going to be amazing for making any updates and not have loss of customization, which was really hard to train a new team member into. How do you know what client to launch to, or what template to launch to what client based on what they had going on? So did a lot of work within the templates in the system. And as you can see, we now have ones set up. So we actually have created AP templates based on the type of platform that our people are using payables on. We've got a bank feed template based on, do we just use QBO, whether they have receipts or not? We had one with adaptive. Is there DEX? Do we use Keeper receipts? So we're able to take these templates and launch them based on the software programs that each person is using as well. And do it very easily. Setting up templates in here is ridiculously simple. And then we have all of these other specialty templates that what I love is when you go into the client, they're sitting within that section that you can create. So it's extremely organized and detailed for me to see what was going on. In my past system, when you went to look at a task list, it's literally just a large list of tasks, and you have to start trying to filter, and you can't really do custom views. And every individual person's tasks were disjointed. There wasn't really a great way for me to go in and quickly see what was happening so I could actually manage my firm.
Yeah. And if I could jump in just for a second, that's sort of what I liked about when you started moving into Keeper is like you're describing your tech stack earlier with QC happening one place, workflows another place, all these different softwares. And I think as a business owner, like how do you really get visibility into what the heck is going on with your clients in your firm? If you're checking 6 or 7 places and trying to mash these things all together in your head, it gets really, really difficult. Mm-hmm. And I like that with all these templates that you have and the detail that you've built out, like this screen and maybe a couple others, you get all that information and can really be able to allocate your time where you need to, right? So your views that you've created based on all these tasks and templates, I think are kind of like the golden thing that you've accomplished in Keeper. And I actually learned a lot through. Do you mind showing off some of those?
I would love to. And I think that's the thing you and I have talked about is I think the templates are great and what you can do with the templates and get templates from people. I mean, you guys have done the community templates where we can share. Fantastic. But the gold of this and what caused me to go from all of these multiple platforms to run my entire firm is the views that I have. And so I just love the setup of the system. We make sure that our statuses are set up exactly the way we want them. And then I use custom views within here. So we get the default one from you guys, which is great, but it's a little bit overwhelming. It's every section that you have, every task, everything, every client. And I started realizing the gem was I could go in and create a bank feeds view. So I have now customized the view and what I'm looking at to only show me what needs to be done in bank feeds. So if I have someone out of the office or if I've got a client meeting that I know is coming up, I can see how on top of these bank feed tasks are we right now? Are we really behind on processing bank feeds? So I can look from there. It's payroll day for me. We had to process payroll. So I can literally, and that's a deadline driven thing, right? You cannot miss that. I can go into my payroll dashboard that only talks to me about payroll tasks. And I can see I've got 2 clients who have payroll tasks due today. These ones are on time and this one has payroll coming up. So I can quickly see the status of what's going on with the payrolls and then click in here to see what's going on. Or what needs to be done. And then if it's late or something, God forbid, I could chat with my client success manager and find out what's going on. Sales tax, another extreme compliance deadline thing. I can go in here. So I have all of these views set up so I can see very easily what I want. I have a month close view set up so that, and this one needs a little bit, but so I can see exactly what's going on. Have we addressed any comments? I can go in there and see what do we have? What is the status here that's going on? Are there files that haven't been handled? Are there any client portal things going that have not been addressed? And then here I can see the close process. How far along are we in it for the close month? And then the last time we publish their financials if we're using their Keeper financials. So I go through here regularly and look at what's going on in my firm. This is my favorite one to start the day off. This is that Excel sheet I was keeping track of before. Is literally what close are we in and what is the progress on that close right now. So obviously if 1801 brands, I'm in cleanup in progress. So I'm not too worried about this close. And I know that we're still in March because that's when we started and we're not ready for the monthly closes yet. So I have utilized these views and also taught my team. These are all shared ones, but my team has now started making views for themselves that are just private to them, so that they can go in and extremely customize their dashboard, so that if they're like, I need to get all my bank feeds caught up, where am I at? They can create their own custom scenario for them to save. So the views have been amazing and a game changer for me to manage what's going on. I also do sneak into the Kanban view every once in a while. I don't stay there, but this is extremely helpful as well.
Yeah, I like that for a high level look. And because of all these views, because like when you sign into Keeper, you can immediately tell, I guess, which things to prioritize or where you really need to dip your hands into. Like, what does your day-to-day look like in Keeper using all of these views?
So my day-to-day starts, I go straight to my tasks dashboard. So I do not start in the task list, and I've created views from here too. So views within your client list, but also here. And you can see that I have a bookmark right here for tasks, so that I can just immediately go to what I want. But I would go to the work for today. So I've saved a view that says anything that's due today or is overdue and assigned to me, like I would be assigned to me, right, if I was in here. I can see what I have on my plate to get handled, and then know, do I have extra time? Do I not? And what I love about this is if there's any firm tasks assigned to me, those will also populate in through here. So I can see, wow, I don't have a lot going on today. I could actually look to work ahead. So on occasion, I'll do this week or overdue and see if I get those done. Or if I don't have a lot going on and I'm concerned about my staff, such as I have a staff member on vacation right now, and my other staff member actually ended up having to be out of the office on Tuesday. So I was very easily able to go in and say, okay, what is all the firm work? I'm looking at the firm entirety, so that I can go in and say, what is actually due? And by default, it comes up with a due date. So I can see, are we late? Are we not? Or sort it by the client, how much is going on? And then if I'm meeting with my client success manager, who might be employee one, when I'm talking to them, I will have their task list up so I can see exactly what's on their plate. And know what's going on. And additionally, when I'm talking to them, I can, if I want to double check their work, I can go into what did they get done for today. And I have that awesome, fairly new situation where you can sort by the employee and the date they completed something. So this was assigned to employee one, but Sean completed it. So if she was needing help, then I can go in and say, hey, I've noticed that, Jean is completing most of your work. Is there something that you need support on? Are you overloaded? And have a better conversation with my staff as far as workload and capacity planning, which I've also started using because you guys have watched that. So my start of my day goes into the tasks, and I'm looking at workload first for me, and then also checking in with my staff. And I meet with my client success manager with a quick 5-minute overview, but we're both looking at the same amount of work that needs to get done today.
Yeah, I like that.
If I can pop in here for a second as well, your views are awesome, by the way. So they're very well organized and look really good. I think when I'm meeting with customers too, like as a CSM, I think one of the two things that I notice people maybe don't dip their toes into as much as they could would be these client views and this tasks tab. I think that, when you look at the client list, what I'm always telling customers, it's bird's eye view, right? If you had 30 to 60 seconds to quickly identify the health of a practice, where they are in the month-end close, what needs to get done, the client list should be able to paint that picture for you. But like you mentioned, the default view and the simple view, although it was really nice in the beginning to get you started, once you start adding like 10, 15, 20, or even 30 clients, it does start to become a bit overwhelming, especially if you start adding more sections. You're seeing all these different colors of green, red, and yellow with the due dates. And we want to improve the efficiency of all of your guys' workflow, right? So having these unique views that can help you really isolate, is this a payroll client? Only showing a view maybe of clients that have a status of ready for manager to review to make their manager's role, a lot easier to double check work is going to save a bunch of time and make it less overwhelming when you're looking at the main dashboard. And in this task view as well, right? Being able to use this maybe in your weekly team meetings or bi-weekly meetings, what's overdue? What do we need to do to push the needle, forward saves you a ton of time. So, yeah, these are really, really great and something that I recommend a lot of people start to look into and also reach out to us if you have questions about it.
Yeah, and I think I'll pair on to that, if that's okay, is also not only in the views, but utilizing the properties in all your settings, right? So that's the other thing I encourage is go to your settings and use your properties so you can create more abilities to filter, right? Because every property that you have if I go to the client, is you can now create properties to filter by. And so that's just, I've got all of these properties set up, and I went through and made sure that if I wanted to filter by something, that property is properly set up. So I have a bunch of different items here that I can now create custom views for, which has been a game changer.
Yeah. And finding that balance, because less is more sometimes too, right? Like just because you can show all of these columns and information doesn't mean that you always should. Sometimes just showing the key things you need to see is going to be helpful. So
exactly.
Yeah, these are great.
I really like that kind of focused view set that you have there, Christina, because like, I guess you have a very chill or calm demeanor to you all the time, but I couldn't imagine it'd be possible if you're kind of, I don't know, stuck trying to figure out what the heck is going on today and what's behind. So it's kind of neat to see that that's enabled it a little bit. And for everyone who's in the chat here, Josh, I think just posted a poll on if you're using these save views or not. I've noticed in my experience, a lot of firms aren't. They're kind of hard to figure out, but they are truly so useful. Like the thing that's impressed me the most about Christina is just how solid these views are and how quickly it feels like she can get a start on her day. So if you don't mind answering the poll, I would love to know.
And for everyone asking about where the properties are and how to access those, that's in your practice settings. Christina, do you mind showing everyone where those were one more time?
No, I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
So there's, there's the sections, but your properties for your clients are here.
Yeah. So under the practice settings in your all client settings tab, you can add some custom properties. You can use the ones that you have there. And then the way you would add them to the dashboard, Christina, if you click out of that, the add column and remove column on the dashboard here, you can play around with it. You can save those as a view. So that's how she's been able to build a lot of these custom views and save them with all the appropriate names that she has here.
Yeah. And given that, Christina, what's like, and I actually don't know the answer to this, even where to start with it, but like, what's the impact this has had on how much you're touching the books? Like, are you as involved with them as you used to be, looking through transactions and looking through QBO files? A little bit less, kind of more the same?
A lot less. So the impact that this had, so I started meeting with you, Sean. I think we started this in March and started doing that 6 to 8 week thing. And it was about, I think 4 or 5 weeks in where I had that aha moment. It was like, I can run my entire firm through this and I can get rid of all of these platforms. And so I did it each week we met. Everything you taught me, I was launching it, testing it, relaunching it. So I've spent several weeks worth of hours testing, retesting, launching, unlaunching, relaunching. And so June 1st, May 1st was the first month that we said, we are going to go straight into Keeper and test this and figure out what is missing, what do we need to tweak. And on day 2, my client success manager came. She was so happy and joy-filled. And she was like, my life is so much easier. Like I can actually see what I have going on, and just being able to go to this one-stop shop to run this, it was noticeably lighter for her. We ended up closing all of our books that we had control over, right? Because some clients are holding stuff up, but 10 days faster than we had any other month, which was amazing. I mean, 10 days of getting them closed so we could actually move into doing more business development. I could do more client meetings, which was crazy. And then from there, we actually were able to set up our templates for discovery calls, right? So it's not even just for our current clients. We're using templates and all that for when we're getting a discovery call request or when we're looking to onboard someone or just check their health files. So we have templates set up for all of that. And what I realized last month, my husband and I were talking is, by default, at the end of the day, my laptop goes with me onto the couch if I'm hanging out and I'm working and listening to the TV as my family's listening. That's my time with them. The laptop was on my lap and I was doing nothing with it. So I brought it kind of out of habit, but was not having to work. So I have taken at least 1.5 days off over the past weekend. So the impact that it's had on me has been amazing. And I now am not in the books for most of my clients often, except for when it's in management review. I review and I do double check all of the transaction and the payee and the final reports before we finalize books. And then we've committed that once we have 6 months with there's no issues that I found, I will not be the manager anymore and be able to make my supervisor the manager. So actually remove myself from there and then only really have to go in. So it's been awesome that I'm doing the final check. And as we're tweaking and utilizing the chat and the comments feature to make things way faster, Even just the quality of work and the understanding of my team as I'm training them up has improved drastically. It's so hard to put into words how much relief this system has brought. And like I said before, I was adamant I was not going full bore into Keeper because I'm not a shiny object person. I'm Springstead Solutions, so I'm a shiny solutions person. And I had tried so many things before Keeper, and I just was adamant about not changing my system again. And I have absolutely no regrets and do not regret making this one last change. And even though there's things I wish Keeper did better, you guys listen and you're actively making these changes. And even things that we didn't have when we went launched, you guys have launched several things that have just made life so much better. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, built for bookkeepers. I like it. And actually you hit on something there that I think a lot of folks would probably want to hear a little bit about, because I have to imagine, and I'm not a business owner, certainly not bookkeeping business owner, but if I was, I'd have to imagine I'd kind of be worried about my team truly getting work done correctly, not just checking boxes as they go. So you mentioned this like 6-month period where you're sort of looking at client files a little bit more while the team's learning them. Can you kind of talk about what that review process looks like for you as a manager? And by the way, that client, Sean Sweets there. Okay, perfect.
So the way it looks for me is when we're doing a month-end close is we have a section called clerk closeout activities. And so one thing that I love that I noticed too is the way I could tweak kind of the way this was working. So initially when we were first in Keeper, we were assigning this to the clerk, and then we were giving it a due date. And then when we went into our task list, it was crazy because I've got some clients who have 31 accounts we need to reconcile, right? So every single account was showing up in the task list. It got completely overwhelming, and we found a workaround for that. But we have the clerk go through everything, and then from there, the clerk assigns it down to the supervisor, and then from there, it's the manager. So I'm the manager on everyone until we get to that 6 months. And we just are reviewing the reports above. But I go through and double check these. So I will actually go in and double check the work and see what did they accept and what did they not. And if there's any issues, I'll use the comment feature here, which is amazing because then when we have a meeting, we can just go through the comments for this client, and we'll literally go through here one by one and either do the training that is required, or I'm a big fan of recording Loom videos. So if I think this could be a hiccup for them month after month until it's really ingrained, I'll record a Loom and then add that to their client guide, which we create a client how-to guide outside. We use ClickUp documents for that they can hyperlink to from the client detail section. So it's now me just doing a last look there and utilizing that for final training. And I'm able to find all that by using these amazing, sections that you guys have for us. So that's really what it looks like for me.
And do you mind, Christina, flipping into, this is like our March month end. I have a bad habit of not maintaining books at all, so Sean Sweets is not in good condition. But if you head over to June, it's a little bit better.
Oh, to June? Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. And because part of, I think what the beauty of these review tools are is if you do want to do a double check, the review tools are really, really detailed. So if we scroll down to transactions without pays or truly any of them, being able to just...
I will here too. And I will make sure, one, what time frame am I looking at? So I'm usually looking at, the past 12 months. But if I close out the books for last month, I'm just looking at this year. But I'll go and see what they reviewed and confirmed if it's a really new person, just to make sure everything looks good.
And then when they do need help, little comments there, you taking advantage of those?
Yep, I am. Absolutely. So, and I will tag the team member that the comment is there for, or I will tag the supervisor, my client success manager, and the person, so that if I want to do training for both of them and say, hey, supervisor, how did this get past you to where I caught it? So I'm now identifying too, is the supervisor really utilizing the system and Keeper to catch the things? Because if it got past them and it got to me, then that's probably a reminder or a training opportunity for both levels of team members.
Oh yeah. Any chance you use emojis in those chats, or is that just a me thing?
I do sometimes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I do sometimes.
Nice. Huge critical update we made there. Yeah, and I guess then, so once you've done a couple reviews for a client, you're feeling confident the team can kind of take it on themselves. You basically pass over that review and really manage the books or manage the firm.
Yeah, I simply go here and just change. The manager becomes my client success manager, or whoever is really having the communication with the client. And so we work the clerk who is in house working on the day to day, but they might not meet with the client. So clerk is who's handling their bank feeds and all their day to day stuff. Really, the bank feeds is the clerk. Then we go into the supervisor, who's the person communicating with the client, their actual contact, and then checking the clerk's work. So if you're a small firm, like before I had my third employee and I didn't have those levels, my current client success manager was the clerk and the supervisor. And then I came in and was the manager. Or if it's a client cleanup who I only handle those clients, I am all three roles. And so I've built it out to really, when I first started doing this and it was just 2 team members, I really looked at where is my firm going and how many staff do I want to have? And I built this whole scenario around that, not what was the size of my firm today, but what do I want it to be?
Yeah, I like that a lot. And if you don't mind, there's one thing I want to show off. If you have like a little message in your top right inbox there that I planted for you. And if you drag your mouse over it, there'll be like a little arrow sort of to the side in the top right. Just beside Mark is red, a little bit up.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Part of what I really like here is like, even after the 6 months, if someone gets stuck, you kind of are the expert on your clients. You could just pop right into what they're asking about. You don't have to navigate back to QuickBooks to find the transaction. It's just there for you, so you can, again, focus on what you actually want to focus on.
Yes.
And then hand off the others.
And I just love if people don't know that you can literally update right here and it goes straight to QuickBooks. So, which is amazing.
Yeah. Really all here. And you talked a little bit about your employees and stuff. And you mentioned this earlier. The word that stuck out to me was vacations, but I think, sick leaves, out of offices, last minute, calls from the bank or the doctor. This stuff happens, and it doesn't mean client work doesn't get to happen. Payroll still has to get filed and such. What's it look like when an employee goes out of office, gets sick, vacation?
Yeah. So, this is a great time to ask me because I have my clerk is on vacation for 2 weeks. And then my client success manager actually ended up having to call out due to some eye reasons. She had to go to the doctor and was gone most of the day. And that wasn't planned, right? Vacations, you can kind of plan for if they're asking ahead of time, but man, those sick days or just the unexpected timeouts really are something else. And so luckily, hopefully everybody else has clients who are really understanding if you've got day-to-day stuff. So for me, it's a very simple going into the task list and saying, okay, I know she was checking on Alyssa's work before, but what do I have? What does she have on deck today? And I will go sort by the client. And then if I know my clients, right, because at the end of the day, I get to respond to them, but I can cancel something if I know, especially because I use tags for daily. So I know that this bank feed is going to come up again tomorrow. And if I'm confident that we don't have to do it today, I can cancel it so that when she comes back in the office tomorrow, she doesn't have a task list of really old stuff. So it allows me to go in very quickly and see what does she have on our plate. Can I cancel something because I know it's coming back up? Or do I need to reach out to the client and explain, hey, she is unable to get in and I cannot get to this, but we promise we'll get to it tomorrow. And so this has made life a lot easier for me. And especially because you can go sort by your client or even just filter out and really just focus and look at what you need to look at. So your VIP clients or maybe your CFO type clients, you can be looking at everybody in that bucket and very easily plan how you're going to tackle the absolute change in your day.
And I kind of, I think this is a good segue into, I do remember the email that you sent me when you decided to ditch your other workflow software. It was like right after one of these group calls that we were having. You sent me this email and it was just so excited and passionate. And, it really stuck out to me. But you were the reason you didn't leave earlier makes sense. You had really well built out workflows already in another system, and it's a lot of change management, scary for the team. This is all just a difficult thing to overcome. But something really neat I noticed in your practice is you have really nice, checklist items, Loom videos, steps, instructions. So if someone does go on vacation, it's like, okay, take this task on, and they've got all the background they need to actually take it over. Yeah. And I guess then on that note, change management and such, how'd your team find Keeper maybe initially, now, how'd that whole process go for you?
So they loved Keeper in the QC part, right? Because it allowed them to catch some of their errors before it even got to me, which was for them was a game changer, because, you know, it's awful when you have the file reviewed and you find something, and especially they're like, oh, I know I knew that and I just didn't catch it. So they had loved Keeper from that aspect there. And I'm sure for other people who have tried a ton of different workflow softwares and moved into things, you know, eventually your staff's like, we cannot do one more change. Like if you change one more system, I'm just going to rip my hair out. And we were kind of there because this was our third test of it, because I'm just so committed to finding the most efficient route to make life easier. And although each scenario we had was a little bit better, it just didn't provide what I needed to be able to step out and really let a team member run the firm. So yeah, and you know what? I started talking and forgot the question. Can you repeat it?
Man, I'm probably getting some of like my Friday brain on too.
Yeah.
Well, basically like your team. So hopping into Keeper,
Yes.
Having not done their workflow management, it sounds like they were a little bit intimidated to learn a new software for, I don't know, task tracking and all of this, but did it take a while for them to adopt Keeper? Was it a tough change? How'd that go?
No, it was actually really simple. Like I said, on day 2, and I'm not even exaggerating, the second day, and I was waiting, I thought, oh, at the end of the first week or second week, I'll check in and see, because it was one more change of a system. But it was so intuitive. And once I explained how they could use the views and save those for themselves and customize, within day 2, she was ecstatic. And then my new clerk who came in after that, she started at the end of May. She literally said on the 3rd day she's like, you have such great workflows set up. Like I'm not stressed that I feel like I'm going to miss something. And she's like, everything is really organized and detailed. That would not have been the case when we were operating out of 4 different softwares plus an Excel sheet. So they were ecstatic and are now looking for ways that we can tweak and improve the system from there. And they're really excited about being in here. And it's just, we can get so much more done too, right? Like we closed the books in 10 more days, and now we're actually able to onboard new clients and bring new clients in a lot faster, which is beneficial for them, not just for the company, but for them too.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess then on that note, and by the way, for everyone watching, if it seems like I'm sort of speaking praise to Christina's practice here in Keeper, it's because like it really is run so dang well. Every time I see it, it gets better, and it's just like kind of a beautiful thing to look at. But yeah, now that you've got all these systems set up, like what does your future look like? Future of Springstead Solutions? Where are you heading?
Yeah. So for me, I am moving, which I'd love to do, is more into strategy and coaching and consulting. One for my clients, but also what I found through all this is people are hungry to learn operational systems. So I'm very operationally focused. And so I love softwares and platforms and how do you make them better. So, you know, part of the thing that we're doing is we developed, one of our solutions is Keeper Solutions. And I've helped a handful of other firms like set up this whole system that I would call, because a lot of people are interested in templates, but again, templates is just the tip of the iceberg of what a system like Keeper can do. And so I've coached some other firms to say, I know I'm not using Keeper the way it could be used. I've got all of these other platforms I'm in, and they're in that same overwhelm I was in. They want to bring a team member on, but they don't know how to really get them into the flow. And when you're trying to train on all these platforms, it's just either you don't bring someone on because you don't know how you're going to find time to train them, or you invest in the right options. So part of that is working with other firms to do the Keeper Solutions and get this whole system started and implemented so that they can take it and then tweak it and customize to their firm. So that's one of the exciting things. Also utilizing more of my Profit First coaching with my clients, because I love Profit First and I am certified in it. So I have been since 2020, and helping people not only make sure that their books are in line, but also how do they then get their cash flow system in line, either developed or improving it if they have it. And then I'm also doing a joint effort, and we're doing a membership program for bookkeepers who are ready to bring a staff member on or move to the next level, called Reconcile to Lead. And so I'm excited to do that with my cohort. He's a CPA based in Minnesota. And we're really excited to just move in and help other firms and bookkeepers who are ready to scale, but just are overwhelmed by systems and that, bring a solution in that can help them. And again, it might not be perfect for everything, but one of the questions you would ask me is what was my advice? And I really had to, in that aha moment, say, when I was looking at these systems, what did I really need versus what did I want? And I had a lot of what I wanted. Like I wanted this thing to do that. And so it held me back from really diving into like going all in on Keeper. But what was it that I really needed? And then how could I tweak it to tweak that thing or find a workaround to customize it, which is how I ended up in Keeper. And I had to let go of a lot of that and say, at the end of the day, I'm not the one trying to run my day-to-day of my firm. So I need to find a solution that is a good fit to bring other people in so I can then go forth and do more strategic and great work for my clients. So that's really what's on the horizon.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect answer. And I like that getting out of the day-to-day, because even what you're mentioning, you're getting up to now, it's kind of like a laundry list of everything you're doing, yet you're still running this well-oiled practice. Sort of like, I don't want to say it's part-time because it's certainly a business, but like you can now dip your toes into all of these other things that you kind of want to get into. And I think that's just really neat, like joining us on this webinar.
Yeah, well, and I can do more solutions, right? Not just bookkeeping solutions. And that's one thing just to really quick highlight is, and how I'm doing that is I really utilize the firm tasks too. So if people aren't doing that, we created a section for each person. And in running the whole firm is we actually go into the firm tasks. And if an email comes in and we need to have action, we're putting it in here. If we're prepping for a webinar, we are putting that in here. So we're literally running and have these tags as, hey, I've got training to do. I've got some admin. This is a marketing focused thing. And so I can now go in and really, truly, again, run my firm in all of my solutions that I'm offering. I'm just really excited about it.
Yeah, I like that, because like I kind of intro this, is just there's so many different elements to Keeper that some firms are using, some aren't. And it's like totally fine if folks want to or just only need to use one piece of Keeper, like the month-end review side. But it is so neat that how much of your business you have in this place. It's just so all-encompassing. Well, hey, I guess then, like with that, Christina, if there's anything else you wanted to add in, please, the floor is totally yours. But this is sort of what I wanted to show off, everything that you've talked about, just again, how much of your life is now in here, and maybe how much extra vacation or time on the TV with family you get. But if you have anything else to add, please go for it.
I mean, the thing I would add is really the things that we talked about was the advice was really making sure that when you're building your system out, I would encourage people, build it for the future firm that you want, right? Because if you're building workflows and all of that through you as a sole proprietor, but you're eventually going to grow. So really take the time to think about, where am I going with this business? What am I going to be building, and what does that need to look like? And then consider, you guys have other people who are helping, but if you're like, I know I can use this system, but I don't really know how. I am a DIYer and I have a hard time like investing in training in that. But the one thing that I wish I would have done hands down was hire professionals in certain to help me get everything running and training me so I could take it from there, because I've wasted months and months of like, oh, I'll figure this software out eventually. And I haven't. And so once I decided to go all in and have, so if you can find someone to help you or coach you along, definitely consider that investment, because it's really looking at, is it an investment or expense, and do that, because the more software that you can have to help automate, that is really helping you. And I just, I'm here, there's definitely improvements that Keeper needs to make, and you guys are. And that's the other thing. Also understand, if you are a Keeper user or whatever software platform, utilize the team members. That's the game changer that you guys have, is I have access to you, Sean. Like my other platform, it was a chat bot and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. And it wasn't 24 hours. I was lucky if I heard from them in 2 weeks, and that didn't help me run or improve a business. So pay attention to your software. If you are in something where you don't have service and you're not understanding it, there's not the resources, find something else, because they're out there.
Yeah, definitely use the help center chat to get in touch with us too if you ever have questions. We definitely want to help. Use the Facebook group as well. A lot of you guys are involved there, and we definitely take the approach of letting you guys help everyone out. But we've got admins. I'm in there. Sean's in there. Ben and Kenny, our CEOs, are in there. So if there's ever something that needs more direct attention, we'll go in and make a comment. And then the YouTube channel as well. For anyone that's still learning Keeper, or if you're trying to get your team up to speed, it's a newer thing we've started growing out, but it really does take a lot of what we typically cover in the onboardings, the basic fundamentals, and bite-sized pieces. And you can pause and rewind and watch all that again. So all those resources are there for you. And then I do see there are also some questions in the chat that were directed specifically towards you, Christina. I know we're coming up on time, but maybe we can go through a couple of those if that's all right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
would love to do that.
Yeah.
Sage, if you want to, you can start
Yeah.
live answers, but let's
Yeah.
take the last 8 minutes and go through some of these.
Yeah, it looks like there's a few that were directed towards you. One of them was from Kelly O'Hara, saying, I'm curious how many bookkeepers, full or part-time, you have, and do all the review, I'm curious how many bookkeepers, full or part-time, you have, and do you do all the review, or do you have a manager or controller that helps in the review process?
So I have a full-time person and a part-time person, and looking at another part-time person here, probably within the next month or two. As I mentioned earlier, I do all of the review right now because we have this brand new system, and my team is still learning how to best use Keeper to check. But once we get to 6 months of there's no issues with a file, I will not then be reviewing. That will be my client success manager who has the thing. So I have 2 employees right now, another one coming on, and then an admin support person.
Awesome. Next one was from May. How do you transition your clients to Keeper? Like any tips or like best tips that you have on how to transition your clients to Keeper?
Yeah, what I have found, and depending on your number of clients, right, this could be overwhelming, is either one, record a video, and actually Sean did this for me, but record a video of actually how to utilize Keeper and why it makes sense to move the communication there, which I will say my email box is way less than it used to be because we are now training our clients to ask all of those questions within the portal. And I can explain to them, when we are working on your file, we're dedicated to your file. Like, we're not having to comb through our email box and what did they say and did we respond to this, just trying to track all that stuff. But for my biggest clients, I went through and did a live Zoom with them and made sure they were able to access it, made sure they understood how each thing worked and what that meant to them. And for my lower level clients where we're really just transactionally, I recorded a video and sent it out to them and walked them through exactly the portal and why. Like, telling them why it's important was really big, rather than here's one more thing for you to log into. Like, we're kind of all over a bunch of, my home screen on my Apple has 50 apps, I swear. But if you can explain the why and how it makes their life easier in communicating with you, they all have bought in with no issues.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like there's one that a lot of people have been upvoting from Angela, and they want to know, what was the workaround you set up to not have all the details of the 31 bank account reconciliation show up in the task list once you've assigned the due dates?
Good question.
So, yeah, and we talked about this too, because that was one thing I was like, Sean, what in the heck is happening here? So in that clerk review section, which I am happy to show really quick, but I have 4 tasks within there. And the task is transaction review. Did they go through the transaction review? And those have a due date. All of the within the transaction review do not have due dates assigned to them, which means if there's no due date, it doesn't show up in your task list. So I take the transaction review, which has 8 sections. That is just one task that has to be done that shows up. And then the payee review is one task. So they're having to go through all those before they can check that off, which eliminated all of that showing up. Because when I signed every individual account a due date, I was like, oh, I'm out. I can't do this. And that was the workaround that I had to find that I was talking about, is that it's not the ideal to not have each account have a due date, but the workaround is I can just have a high level review under the clerk.
That's so clever, by the way. I just need to shout that out a little bit. The tasks list, it does get super overwhelming. Like, I have 200 things on my plate, but they're all just different account recs. Tracking at a high level, you can assign the tasks, just don't assign them a due date is such good advice.
Exactly.
Next one that also got a handful of upvotes was people want to know how you are using Keeper for discovery calls and onboardings.
So I actually have right now a calendaring link that can come, and when I get that notification, I set that client up as an unconnected client, and I assign a template. So I have a discovery calls template, and then I have a health check template if I'm doing a health check, and then I have an onboarding template. So as soon as I get the notification someone's meeting with me, I set them up as an unconnected client. I assign that discovery call task to them, and all of those are assigned to me.
And then I think one question that I had for you, I don't know if I see other ones that we haven't answered in the chat, but I think one I would have for you is obviously you're at a place now where you've started to see the the promised land of what Keeper can start to do for your practice, right? Like you put the time in to adopt it. Obviously, you've worked with Sean, which is an amazing CSM, to help you adopt it as well. But knowing what you know now, if you could go back to like maybe the earlier version when you were just figuring out Keeper, like, what is it that you would have told yourself, or any advice you would have given yourself at that time, knowing what you know now?
It has been a game changer.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, I know we're up to the last minute of this webinar and people have to run here soon. This was amazing, Christina. I just wanted to sort of end with maybe I dropped your website in there, but where can people find you? Just, feel free to shamelessly plug. I think a lot of people can use some additional help. I know comfort levels are probably all over from low, medium, high of using Keeper. So I guess we can end with that. How can people find you?
Christina, thank you for joining. Seriously, what you've done in Keeper is so cool, and really thanks for sharing it. I'm sure a lot of folks going to draw some inspiration from you.
Appreciate it, Christina. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your Thursday and a great rest of your week.
Thank
Take
you
care,
all.
everyone. Thank you again, Christina.